welcome to Roadside Rumours. I'm Sanika.
And I'm Kawal, and today we're here with
Angela, but you can call me Jola.
I'm Ben.
Hi guys. So Sanika, do you want to tell us what we're here for?
So today we're going to talk about the queer community in Hong Kong, and you guys identify as a part of the queer community, right? So do you guys want to start off by telling us a little bit about yourselves and also the community in Hong Kong?
Oh.
Okay. So my name is Ben. I identify as a cisgender gay man, and I've been active in the local community, I think, since I was 18, so 3-4 years ago. And I actually belong to a university LGBT association, so I've been organizing events and going to different events in Hong Kong.
Are you active in school, like on campus?
Not really, but we do have like booths on University Street in HKU and stuff, so definitely kind of visible, but not too mainstream, that's what I'll say.
What about you, Jola?
Same, actually. I'm Angela. I identify as a cisgender queer person, and I have also been in a bit of LGBT local community activism for the past 3-4 years since I entered uni. I was previously in a university LGBT advocacy group called Action Q, where we would do a little bit of education work. We would hold workshops, movie screenings, art exhibitions, and all that.
Do you guys want to tell us a little bit about your personal journeys? Because from, I guess, coming out to getting into activism on campus or in the community.
About myself journey, I firstly identified as a lesbian when I was in high school. I discovered Tumblr, and then I saw YouTube, and then there was a lot of like gay literature and fandom and all that, and I thought I was very, very lesbian. But then when I entered university, I thought I started exploring more about my sexuality, so I discovered that maybe I'm not just purely homosexual, and I figured that sexuality is a spectrum, so I started dabbling on, I thought I was bisexual at first, but then I started dabbling on other kinds of sexualities, and I thought it was not really necessary to label myself, so I kind of identify as a queer person kind of now.
For me, I think I started my discovery in puberty, like most people do, about sex, and I think I've just identified as gay since the beginning, and it's stayed the same. Not to say that it won't change in the future, because everything is fluid and it's on the spectrum. But in terms of coming out, I'm out to most of my friends and on uni as well, and but not to my family, and I don't have plans to do that actually. I've actually heard the same from most of my gay queer friends in Hong Kong, that they're out to their friends but don't plan to come out to their family. I'm not sure if this is the same case with your friends in your circle.
Actually, it's a bit, I consider myself a bit lucky. I did come out to my parent. Well, I'm in a single parent family, so I did come out, but my mom believes that I'm still in a phase. However, because back then I had an ex-girlfriend who would always come over to my place, and before that, previously, I had a few ex-girlfriends who would come over, and I would call them my best friends, but obviously my mom kind of knew, I felt like she knew, and it was pretty obvious, she would come over all the time, and afterwards, when we broke up, I came out to my mom, and I said I was bisexual, and she felt that it was a phase, so she still thinks that it's a phase, but I always shove it in her face, look, I like women also.
That's so interesting. But when you guys talk about the community in Hong Kong, is it big, is it diverse, or does it mostly consist of local Chinese people?
I think the most of the parties or gatherings that I attend or participate in are a lot more localized. Oh, and I don't think there are as many parties as there are for the gay community. I'm not really sure, but a lot of it is more online. We have 2 apps called Butterfly and Her, so a lot of socializing is done there, and also there are more private gatherings, smaller parties than bigger. But there are also bigger parties, once every few months.
I mean, from what I've seen in gay bars and events in Hong Kong, because there's other part of queer culture other than nightlife, which is like a stereotype I'm trying to break, because people always think that queer people just go to parties and like get drunk and dance to music and that's it. But we actually have a lot of other events as well. But I'd say gay men in Hong Kong are not only like local Chinese people. I've seen, if you go to like a bar and stuff, you see like white people, like brown people, and then they all like sort of come together. And but I don't know about like the statistics, numbers and such, but they're surely like visible in the community. It's not just like local Cantonese speaking people.
It was interesting that you mentioned that there's a lot of stereotypes surrounding the queer community, because I have one of my closest gay friends. He would always talk to me about how it's very difficult to go past a certain phase in gay relationships sometimes. So he would always say that it's casual sex is very common, but it's been very hard for him to find a long-term relationship. Do you guys also feel the same?
I think there's different types of people. I think maybe like on dating apps, like for gay men, and Grindr is also available for trans women as well. So there are women on Grindr, but it's mostly still used by gay men. And the purpose of the app is, I would say, mostly for hookups, because they sort the profiles by physical distance. So the one closest to you see first. So I would say that's like the main purpose of the app. But obviously, like if you go on the app, you find a lot of people just like looking for sex. But in real life, I met like a lot of like gay couples and like queer couples that have been together for a long time, and some of them like non-sexual at all. So it depends on like who you look to, and if you go out more and like meet more people, then you'll find like there are different types of like queer people and queer relationships.
I feel like it's a little less stereotyped about like the nightlife and all that in the lesbian community. It's more there are more long-term relationships that I see like in my community, and there is also like a hookup culture, although previously, a few years before, it wasn't very approved of, especially on the internet, where they kind of, on Butterfly especially, they banned like a hookup platform. There was like different sections on the app. So there's this one that is about 18 plus, so you can just go in and find sex partners or whatever, but that was banned because it wasn't deemed appropriate by the community, so they kind of took that down. But I still see that a lot in the nightlife. Yeah, and I wanted to add that there's also a bit of, for the queer community, there's also like the arts and literature side. I believe there used to be this like lesbian and gay film festival, and also this literary festival. I see a lot of newer independent publications by queer communities. A lot of them I see like English, but I see also like in Cantonese. I see like there's a embrace of local culture as well as the intersection of queer identity.
Can I just like add a point about like rainbow families? Because I actually know like a couple of like rainbow families are like families made up of queer people. So people that like have married overseas and like have either like surrogate children or like adopted children in Hong Kong. They have like their like regular hangouts. So I know there's like a community in Hong Kong made up of like rainbow families, but they're like mostly like wealthier and like older than like what we are.
So coming to queer sex, for most of us, I feel like the first introduction that you have to sex is probably through porn or cinema or the media. But what about you guys? When did you guys first come across that idea, and like, because it's not as commonly shown, and at least when we were growing up in like the mainstream media, but now it's a lot more popular. But how did you guys come across it, and did you guys have any questions and things like that in the beginning?
I think through porn, that was my like first media of like knowing how like two males would have sex, because like you said, like in Hong Kong, like there's barely no sex education, and it's mostly not that visible in media and like film and television. So when you're like growing up, when you're in puberty, you like just go online and search like how people have sex and all that, but nothing like mainstream or like from a textbook. But obviously like porn is a good way of knowing that, but also a very bad like representation, because a lot of actors are just like acting. It's it's called acting, and they're all like on drugs, and they're all like under the influence most of the time. Like I would say so. So it's not really like a good representation of like sex, but it's an important media. I feel like.
Do you guys remember like the first time you saw it online, or like your first encounter with queer things?
Not really. Okay. Well, I believe that everybody goes to porn websites to understand about sex, but I find that very difficult to learn about girl sex on Pornhub, because they're very misrepresented. A lot of them actually caters to the male gaze. A lot of the positions aren't really like comfortable, in my opinion, but they're just very hot, I think, for people to look at. But I remember the first time that I was actually aroused by like a women sex scene was in Blue Is the Warmest Color. I thought that was really hot. It was still very stretched out. I understand that people have criticized it, but it was really like very steamy for me. But I remember one time when I was watching, after I watched it, I wanted to watch it again. So one time I had my laptop on, so I paused it at like that moment. And so the next time, like I left my computer somewhere, but then my friend came over, and then so we decided to open our laptop. So when I opened it, there was that scene, and it was very awkward because I have not come out to like any of my friends. Yeah.
You mentioned Blue Is the Warmest Color, and I love that film as well. But do you guys think that in other films or other kinds of media, sometimes the queer community is misrepresented
Or
underrepresented?
I think now we're seeing more like queer filmmakers make like movies and TV about like queer life. So that's obviously better than like, straight people, portraying like, a gay relationship. That's a good thing to happen, but it also, they're not from the community, so there's obviously some misrepresentation going on there. But now, if you like go on Netflix, or like you see a lot of like queer movies and queer TV shows, and I can recommend some to you. But
He has a list.
I prepared as well. What are some of your favorites, or something that you think really represents it well?
Well, something that hits close to my heart are my favorite queer ships on Netflix. I do really like Pose, like the one about ballroom culture. I really like Angel, and her journey about trying to assimilate into the mainstream society. However, it's like her efforts are kind of stunted because of reality. I felt that was very relatable in a lot of aspects for the queer community, or any minorities in general. It's kind of like a discourse. So I felt I related to her character, and she was also really pretty. And I really liked the two romances that she had with, first like the hetero cis white guy who works in, I don't know, like the finance. So he was like that prototypical very successful, very mainstream kind of man. And then there's this like other hustler kind of boy who she met later, who kind of actually connected with her. I thought that was really cute. And there's also, have you guys watched Euphoria?
Like one episode.
Okay, it's okay. Well, it's their makeup is so good. I like Jules and Rue. Jules is Jules is the transgender male to female transgender exchange student. Well, not exchange. She just came. Yeah, she just came to the school, and she met Rue, and then there's this like kind of very sisterly bond that kind of crossovers between romance and friendship. And I thought that's kind of accurate in a lot of lesbian relationships. I feel like, especially speaking from my own experience, I feel like relationships with women tend to be more like platonic, with a mix of like family and a mix of like romance. I tend to think that for my own. Yeah,
like one of my favorites now just came out last year. It's a French movie called wait, Portrait of a Lady on Fire.
Oh yeah, I haven't watched.
Yeah, so it's really good. I feel like
Uh-huh.
you know, like if you watch it, you might complain that it's too slow in the build up because like there's the first hours are literally just like people staring at each other and like going on walks. It's a period drama set in like I don't know the 17th century, something like that. But then like the moment it happens between the two female characters, it just like exploded, and I think it's really represents well like. I think like for me like my personal journey like it's very slow in the build up, but then when you like meet like you know the first guy and then like your first relationship, it just sort of like exploded, and I felt like that was a really good movie as well. Like the cinematography, everything was really good. And there's one in theaters now, like we're recording in June 2020. It's called Sok Sok. It's a local Hong Kong like movie, and it's about two elderly gay men who are both they both have like heterosexual families, so they were forced to marry when they were young, but then now they're like in their 60s and 50s, and then they want to like come out and like you know confront and face their like sexuality, and then they like develop a relationship. And it's a really good like representation of like elderly gay people, which we like almost never see in media. So if you know want, you might still be able to see it in cinema in Hong Kong. So that's like two movies that recently have become my favorites.
They're my favorite too. I really like Sok Sok.
Do you guys think that the local community in Hong Kong, just Hong Kong people in general, are accepting of the queer community, or have you guys had any negative or positive experiences?
I'm thinking, like, for instances for other kind of marginalized minorities, because I feel like for me, I'm already passing, and like lesbian relationships or like queer relationships are generally more accepted. But I'm thinking about perhaps like transgender community or like cross-dressers. I don't know. I feel like there's still like a stigmatization, and people still kind of make fun of them on the internet and all that.
Yeah, if you know there's the ID, if you're like male on ID but then you present female,
Yeah.
then obviously that's I've heard of people who apply for a job and then they see their ID and it's like, are you like male or female? And then they're not sure how to deal with that. And if you work in that company, like, are you going to use the women's or the men's toilet? So for like some employers, that's going to be a problem that they've never like faced this problem before, because there's no like laws in Hong Kong that like teach them how they can do it. And the sex education part, they were not brought up thinking about those issues. And then I would say if your gender expression is more like defiant of like the binary and then the heteronormativity, then you obviously face more difficulty, because if you like are very feminine but then you're a guy, and then you're very masculine for, if you're a woman, and then society certainly, I would say, people give you like stares and such and you feel uncomfortable. Not that they would like outright tell you or like call you names, but then you just feel really uncomfortable in some environments, I would say. It's because there's no like legal framework in Hong Kong that protect us. I would say it's like the roots of like discrimination.
So Ben, you just mentioned gender expression. So how have your journeys been for expressing yourselves in terms of I don't know, your appearance or the way you guys talk?
You want to show off your boots?
Yeah, I do. Where's the camera? Yeah, so like I've definitely become more comfortable with like how I dress. I used to like deliberately like try to de-feminize like my outfit, because like I do get misgendered a lot in like public spaces. Like I used to have like longer hair than this, which is not long.
Do you remember when you fell down in the bus and the driver, the bus driver was like, "Susan, oh yeah,
yeah, he called me Miss.
He's like, "Miss, are you okay?" Like he fell down the stairs in the
And
bus.
actually in HKU, like I've been called like I think at least 5 times, like when I'm entering the men's toilet, and they're like, no, this way, this is the like men's toilet.
Oh no.
Yeah, and I'm just like very conscious of that. But obviously, like anyone's like gender identity should like not match their expression. It doesn't matter,
Yeah.
You should just like wear what you want and like however the way you want to dress, just like go for it, and it doesn't affect like how you identify. But then in the society you still get a lot of like pressure to like
Look a certain
comply.
way.
Yeah, just like you're a guy, then like dress like a guy, whatever that means.
Yeah.
So that was like me, I guess, like a few years ago. But now I'm much more comfortable, like wearing like platform shoes and
Yeah.
just like being fabulous and just like feeling like that. And yeah, I've been like lucky that I have like been through that journey and like I guess like past the hurdle. Just like it is a lot of internal work that you do with yourself, and then like you go out and obviously there's still people like who are going to stare at you, but then
Mhm.
you just get better with like that. And I think it's important for everyone to overcome that, but at their own speed.
Yeah.
So you shouldn't like force anyone to just like you should go out like this, but like for some people it's difficult, right?
Yeah. What about you, Chola?
Okay. I feel like the way I dress, it's less about the way I present or how I identify, but more like some very back to where about body insecurities and all that. I have two kind of insecurities. Well, first I experimented with not wearing a bra, and and tattoos and other kinds of what you would. It's a new one, yeah. What you would consider kind of non-conforming or something that would piss our parents off, the kinds of things. Well, I started not wearing a bra because I didn't feel the need to, and I was in high school, and I kind of in tutorial classes I would kind of do that, and I kind of got made fun of, so I had to overcome that. I had to explain myself. I had to explain that I wasn't trying to be provocative. I felt like a lot of the times the way I dress are kind of related to me wanting something, or me inviting stares, or me inviting harassers, you would say. I try hard to fight that stereotype.
Yeah.
So on the MTR, when I dress like without a bra, or when I show my belly, it's actually very normal. I feel like you can see that on the beach, and you can see that at home. So why is it like weird if you do that outside? I'm not asking you to go full naked, but just like, for example, the way I dress now, if I go in the MTR, if I go on the bus or any places that are more crowded, there are weird stares, like aunties and uncles, they would give me, but I would stare back at them and like, "Lê mong yun mày, are you done looking?" Yeah, and they would look away. I feel like I would be more confrontational in my gaze. I feel like that kind of protects me. There's that part, and there's also another part, like a lot of insecurities come from when I had my partners. They are all really pretty. I don't know why. They're like so pretty. They're all more gorgeous than I am, and I felt so insecure back then. Especially when my partner were very non-conforming, gender non-conforming. So in the queer community, it's kind of very attractive, right? It's a very attractive trait. But then I feel like I'm just very cis presenting, and I felt very insecure about it. Very weird. I felt like I should be more experimental, so I kind of got too aware to a point where I didn't dare to do a lot of experimentations with how I presented myself. But then now I kind of overcame this, and I felt better. I started experimenting more. Yeah, so there's.
Do you also kind of feel that pressure to express yourself in a certain way? Because that's really interesting that you felt that pressure to do that, because I always when I see people that dress a certain way that is very experimental, I'm always so impressed, and like you said,
Fascinated.
It's very fascinating, yeah. And then I also want to experiment.
Yeah, no, I felt that way too.
Yeah, but did you ever feel any kind of pressure?
I don't think I did. I don't think I ever did. I'm just like, I don't know, like I talk like an old person, but I'm just like very like comfortable in my own skin.
Yeah.
Certainly, but like yeah, that's a good point. Like even like within the queer community, like you're expected to like act certain way. I feel like for example for like gay men, like like how you dress and like how you talk. If you have like even like for gay relationship, you're supposed to have this like dynamic of like the male and the female.
Yeah.
So yeah, so there's certainly elements of that in the community, but yeah, as I said, like I'm very fortunate to like have overcome that, and I'm just like very comfortable in my own skin.
I feel like to learn, like us learning like how to dress and how to act, it was something that was taught to us from a very younger age, right? So these topics like that we're discussing right now, they've been existing for a long time, but they've just come out recently. Like more people are starting to talk about it and more people are starting to embrace this culture. So do you feel like there's something that we should do for the younger generation so it makes it easier for them? Like, you know, whatever we've been through, is there anything that we can do to like challenge the traditional like system, like education wise or like in like universities?
Well, I'm just thinking on the tangent of how you express yourself, like the way you dress and all, like self-presentation. I feel like high school is a very conforming period. You kind of want to experiment, but you don't dare to do it too much. I feel like that comes with every generation. So, I think it's really hard to break it, but it's also important that you always remind, like, you know, the younger generations, like high schoolers, perhaps, that it's okay to not be conformed. I feel like they would just listen and like the words would come out, they come in one ear and go out the other, but I think they will understand when they enter universities or they graduate or when they finish their high school education. Because I met a Seymour who is still like, she went to the same school as my secondary school, and she's a very experimental girl. Like I found her because she had these really nice Instagram pictures. I was like,
what does that mean? What is that?
Like a junior.
Oh,
junior. Yeah, she went to the same secondary school, so she dressed really nicely and very grungy, like very e-girl, super cool. But I thought it was very daring for someone to come from the same school. I didn't expect she was in the same school that I was, and I asked her,
Does your school have like a religious
yes, obviously. Yeah, they would always be like, oh, you need to like tie up your hair, or you can't wear 2 hair ties on your hands, or you must wear like a undershirt for your uniform.
My
so
school
that's
was so
not
ridiculous.
too much.
We were like, oh, if you want to wear earrings, they have to be like one cm in width, and it has to be black. And I was just like, bro, like what? And they're like so strict. And I remember like in our dresses, like they have to be knee high. So once a week, like we would have, so basically in my high school, we had to enter the school and tap our cards for attendance. And before, like once a week, like I think Mondays, there would be like a sister standing, like a nun, like standing, and there would be a chair. And if they think your skirt is too short, they would make us like kneel on the chair to see if it touches like as long as it touches the chair means it's long enough, which is like so ridiculous, because like even if your skirt or dress is like a little shorter, they'll just, I don't know, they'll just make you like, they'll just tell you to like get a new one the next day. And I remember like my friend, like she does she goes swimming, so like her hair was like bleached from the swimming, right? And the school wouldn't accept that as a reason, and they made her like dye it black, like pitch black. So I don't know if it's something to do with like religious Catholic schools in Hong Kong, which also stop you from expressing.
I think like a lot of schools in Hong Kong have like religious
backgrounds,
affiliations, right? So like whether like Catholic or like Christian or like Buddhist even, but so that might be the reason like there's not much like sex education in Hong Kong. Like, do you know like the curriculum has not changed since 1997?
Yeah.
The sex ed curriculum in Hong Kong, that's like over 20 years
Is there
ago.
any sex ed curriculum? I don't think.
So the
I don't
only
really
thing
remember.
I remember is like vagina, penis, and then you get pregnant.
And there was like a talk
Like,
about like
literally
STDs,
on-
like
yeah.
that's it.
There was we had like a auditorium speech one time. They had like a social worker, and we made an experiment. There was a game. They were like, okay, all of you now, you need to like stand up and shake hands. So I'll shake hands with you, and then no, they asked us to all shake hands with each other, and so we all shook hands with each other. We were just like playing, and then after like 5 minutes, they're like, okay, let me ask this person to stand up. Can other people who shook hands with this person also stand up? So some of them stood up, and then a lot of them subsequently all stood up, and they're like, okay, so see, this is how the STD virus is spread out. If you start having sex, this is what is going to happen. The whole class will have STDs, and we're all like, what?
Yeah, so that's the sex ed in Hong Kong. It's like really
I don't remember
tragic.
that much. I think I had it once in primary where they just told us that dicks and vaginas exist,
Yeah.
and in high school it was when they told us like condoms, like, condoms exist and STDs.
Yeah, they taught like
That's
they
it.
put like the boys in one room and
The girls in one room,
how to use
yeah.
a
And they
condom.
gave like us like menstrual pads as souvenirs. Yeah, I don't know what they gave the guys.
In my school, it was during, how the rugby sevens, and a lot of people go drink and hook up during the sevens, so they just left a bowl of condoms in the common room, and they're like, go. And then people would just put the condoms on their hands, on their face, put water in the condoms, and play like water balloons. We don't know what to do with them. You have to tell us.
Like there's a huge difference, I think, like between like international schools and like local schools.
I think if you put that bowl in a local school, no one would dare like touch it. Like, no one would touch it. Parents would freak out. Like sisters would freak out in the school. Like I think they will pass out. And like the students would definitely not touch it. Like they'll just walk past it. Like if I was back in high school and I see a bowl of condoms, I would probably like walk past it and like look at it, or like I don't know, just walk around it. But I won't touch it. I won't touch it.
Finished all of them, and none of them were used for the actual purpose of a condom. On our last day, it is ridiculous. On the last day, as a prank for the teachers, we just left the leftover ones in the teacher staff room.
International school kids.
But since we were talking about religion, do you guys have any kind of a relationship with religion, or have felt any kind of pressure from religious figures or people who are religious in your life?
I mean, I went to a Christian school for actually since kindergarten. So like up until uni, I was in like Christian education. So they would like talk a lot about the Bible, but I think they're so scared of talking about sex, they don't even talk about like homosexuality, so they just like skipped everything about sex. So that was like my school's approach to like sex. So there was like no mention of that. They were not like gays will go to hell. Like there was just like no mention of like anything sexual. But so I'm not personally religious, but I found like in Hong Kong there are like religious like support groups for like queer people as well. So like within the community, like you have like Christian people who are queer, like they have like amazing like support groups. So definitely like not like all Christians want you to go to hell. That's not the case. What about?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've come across friendly allies who are also from the church, who are also very LGBT friendly. I've seen a lot of that. I don't really have much pressure from the religious groups, more because I feel like I'm autonomous from them. Again, I'm not a very religious person, but I do find in terms of sexuality, maybe I could be like a little bit distracting from what you were asking, but in terms of spirituality and sexuality, I feel like I'm trying to navigate my sexuality, because this is something about top and bottom energy. I very much stick to the bottom energy, and I find that it's kind of I feel like I'm kind of conformed and stuck in that, but I would kind of like to expand a lot of this. And I find that often women especially that I like, because I am more sexually drawn to men for their more, I'm not, this is kind of like a generalization, I'm not meaning every one of them, but more cis hetero men, or they have more of like a top energy. So as a more bottom energy person, I kind of like am drawn to this. So romantically, however, I'm more drawn to women. Not specifically for their top or bottom energy, but more because of the way that I bond with them. I feel a lot more connected. So I find myself very stuck in this. I kind of want to break this. I don't want to only be sexually attracted to men and not to women. So I'm kind of navigating this, and I feel like a lot of the reasons that I kind of am drawn to top energies because I lack that kind of energy, and I would like to compensate. So like this kind of spirituality is very like a yin and yang situation. I kind of want to learn to navigate between the two and take like a balance. I don't know if that's the case for like gay relationships, but me as like not strictly lesbian, I feel like as a queer person, I feel like I need to learn to grapple both.
That's so interesting. Do you mind like sharing some like ways like, or how do you experiment? Because I'm curious. Like I feel like I've heard a lot about like people talking about their sexuality, and which has made me curious as well. And I've like attended lectures and stuff, but I feel like I've never experimented on myself, or I've never tried it, so I don't really know like where I fit in. You know what I mean? So how about you? Like, how do you experiment? Like, do you?
If you want to experiment, you can have more sex.
Good answer.
Really?
Yeah, like or try open relationships, but then that's a lot on communication and trust with your partner. So yeah, I became more open to this idea after understanding that like everything is kind of like a social contract. So if that happens in society, you can do it within like two people, right? Everything.
Oh, one thing. One of my friends, so she also identifies as lesbian, and she was trying to tell me how she has a lot of proposals from straight women or bi-curious women. And is that, I mean, she would get really, really annoyed.
Right.
Do
you mean like the threesome invitations? Or?
Yeah, threesome invitations, but also just, oh, I'm bi-curious, like, I'd like to try, so do you want to... Even just two people.
Interesting. I've never been approached that way. I always know that somebody is of a certain sexuality before I approach them, so not really. I do, however, have come across men who really fetishize like the bisexuality identity that I kind of present myself, and they're like, oh, would you want a threesome? I mean, they ask politely, but I don't know. I feel like that's a paradox. I'm not really very... It's kind of annoying, but it's also like, I guess people are kind of open, and I shouldn't judge them for their kind of particular tastes. Yeah.
So do you guys have any final thoughts on the queer identity? And have you had any proposals, Ben?
I mean, like on Grindr, you get a lot of like people like profiles that said like couple looking for threesome and like stuff like that. And like I've seen like self-proclaimed like straight guys on there just like wanting to explore. But I think like there's nothing wrong with that, certainly, because we're like all like exploring ourselves. But I feel like it's important for you to like disclose that, you know, so that the person you're like exploring with is like on the same page as you, so that you're not like kind of like duping someone. Like maybe they think like you're into a relationship, but then you're just like exploring your sexuality. So just like be upfront and like, you know, it's a welcoming community. Just like, you know, say what you want and see if anyone's interested. Right?
I think it's very important. To have consensus of what each other are doing or where each other's headspaces are at. That's very important, and I don't really have much final words. I think it's important to experiment more, especially our age. I think it's very important that we experiment more, do whatever we want before we actually settle, or we don't ever. That's totally okay. And I also think it's important to create and write more, or like do whatever, make something out of like your experiences. I think that's important for representation, for, I don't know, visibility, for the queer community to record these things. If you're advocating to like break the margins, and you're advocating to have more acceptance and plurality in society. Thank
you so much for all your thoughts today. It was so nice having you guys talk about your experiences. I think it's something quite like intimate and personal, but I hope this can help like the audience, or if anyone who's looking to like explore, right? So
thank you. We'll see you on another episode.
Bye.